My last video, 10 ways to fill your sketchbook, helped thousands of artists finally break through that creative block and start drawing again. But so many of you told me you're ready for the next challenge. You want to finish your sketchbook and fill every single page with purpose. So in this video, I'll show you 7 more creative, practical, and sometimes unconventional ways to do just that, with real examples from my own sketchbooks along the way. Let's start with one of my favourite ways to get out of perfectionism and back into momentum: time-limited sketching challenges. I've talked before about how powerful just 10 minutes of sketching a day can be, but this takes it a step further. Set a timer, 5, 10 or 20 minutes, and commit to filling a page within that window no matter what. It forces you to make bold decisions and ignore that inner critic that wants to slow you down. You can do this with anything: portraits, master studies, landscapes, or even abstract forms. The key is to work fast and observe honestly. When you sketch under a time limit, you learn to trust your instincts, simplify shapes, and capture energy instead of detail. Over time, you'll find your line confidence and visual memory improving dramatically. And the best part? These pages often become some of the most alive, expressive drawings in your sketchbook. Once you've loosened up with quick sketches, try slowing things right down. This next exercise is all about truly seeing, not just looking. Blind contour drawing is one of those exercises that looks silly, but it's secretly brilliant. Here's how it works. Pick a subject, like your hand, a houseplant, or even a portrait from a photo. Then, as you begin to draw, resist the urge to look down at your page. Keep your eyes fixed entirely on the subject. Let your pencil simply follow where your eyes travel, line for line, curve for curve. Move slowly, tracing the edges and forms with your gaze, and trust your hand to keep up. What you end up with will almost always look strange. Twisted proportions, disconnected lines, sometimes it barely resembles what you are looking at. That's the beauty of it. This exercise isn't about the outcome, it's about rewiring how you see. Most of us don't truly look when we draw. We glance once, then start guessing. Blind contour drawing interrupts that habit. It forces you to slow down, to really observe every shape, every transition, every subtle curve of the form. And as you practice, something clicks. When you return to normal sketching, your lines start feeling more confident and more alive. You'll notice you're observing more deeply, not just outlines, but relationships between forms, angles, and flow. It's a quiet kind of training, teaching your eyes to lead and your hand to trust. And the more you do it, the more you begin to see the world and your drawings with a little more honesty. The next idea is one that every artist throughout history has practiced: borrowing a style, or in other words, stealing like an artist. Pick an artist you admire, and instead of copying an entire artwork, which of course you can do in a master study, zoom in on how they make their marks. Study the micro decisions, the way their lines taper, where they apply pressure, how they let go of it. Maybe it's the confident, sculptural pencil strokes of a 19th century draftsman, or the flowing, elegant brushwork of a contemporary illustrator. Perhaps it's the looseness of John Singer Sargent's gesture, or the delicate control of Alphonse Mucha's line work. When you study like this, try not to simply copy what you see. Instead, imagine how it feels to draw that line. What's the rhythm behind their hand? How do they think through form? How do they simplify or exaggerate to create impact? You can even mix and match. Take the energy of one artist's brushwork and pair it with another's sense of shape or proportion. Do small calligraphy style exercises to get used to their movements, just following on the marks themselves, not the final image. And here's the key: you're not trying to become them, you're expanding your visual vocabulary. Every artist learns by echoing what came before them. But over time, these echoes blend with your instincts. Little by little, you'll notice fragments of other artists living quietly within your own work. A shadow of their influence in your line, your rhythm, your choices. That's how style truly evolves. Not by mere imitation, but by personal curiosity. By studying how others express beauty, you end up discovering your own voice. When you've gathered a few new skills and ideas, it's time to commit to something bigger, a challenge that tests your discipline and your endurance. The 100 challenge is one of the most transformative ways to push through a plateau. You choose one subject, portraits, hands, trees, gestures, anything that fascinates you, and commit to drawing it 100 times. For this example, I chose portraits. Over time, I challenged myself to draw 100 heads, some male, some female. Some were quick line sketches, loose, searching, exploratory. Others were more developed with tone and shading. On some pages, I filled an entire spread with small gestural heads, different angles, expressions, quick experiments. Other times, I focused on just one portrait per page, slowing down, exploring form, and really observing the subtleties of structure and value. The goal wasn't to make one perfect drawing, it was to build a sense of rhythm. The first 10 often felt a bit awkward. By 30, you start to see patterns and habits in how you draw. By 70 or 80, something changes. You stop overthinking and your hand begins to move instinctively. You start seeing rather than guessing. You're no longer drawing a head, you're drawing planes, rhythm, light. It's a test of endurance, but a rewarding one, because when you finally reach 100 and flip back to page 1, you can see the difference. The growth is right there on the paper. No tutorial can give you that kind of transformation. It's raw, earned, and deeply personal. Your sketchbook becomes a record of that journey, a visible map of your evolution as an artist. After all that structure, let's open things up. This next one is where imagination takes over, where your sketchbook becomes a world of its own. If you want to walk this path a little further, I've built a space called The Artist Path. It's a free community for artists on the same creative journey. You can join through the link below. Fantasy character sketching is where creativity transforms into pure storytelling, where imagination and drawing merge into something personal and almost cinematic. Instead of copying a photo, I like to start with a spark, a small fragment of a story or emotion. It could be a word like the Wanderer. It could be a question. What if she was the last guardian of an ancient realm? Or just an image in my mind, a cloaked figure beneath stormlight. For this example, I've chosen to show some of my own sketches from recent and past sessions, starting with a female warrior holding a sword. I remember imagining her as a defender of an old forgotten kingdom, her stance calm but unyielding. From there I moved on to a double-page spread featuring two figures, a male and a female, the mage casting light between his hands, while the woman beside him watches with quiet power. I wanted that page to feel alive. Like a single frame pulled from an unwritten story. From there, I began exploring characters more rooted in myth and legend, particularly from the British Isles and Europe. These worlds are rich with archetypes, druids, fae, knights, nymphs, and wandering spirits. Sometimes I'll sketch a modern figure but weave in something otherworldly, like this man with angel wings, caught between heaven and earth. Or these underwater nymphs, faces half hidden, caught in emotion like they're drifting through dreams. Other times I'll turn toward the wanderers, cloaked travellers with stories untold, carrying mystery in their silhouettes. And then the fairies, delicate, playful, but always with a glimmer of sadness or wisdom in their eyes. I like ending the sequence with this final sketch, a cloaked princess, her gaze slightly ahead and over her shoulder, almost aware of the viewer, watching from behind, as if she knows her story is still unfolding beyond the page. When I work on characters like these, I rarely plan too far ahead. I let one line suggest the next, one design element inspire another. Maybe a symbol appears, a scar, a crown, or a piece of jewellery that suddenly tells you who they are. That's when the real storytelling begins. It's a dance between structure and intuition, realism and myth. You start to mix what's true with what feels true. And over time, your sketchbook becomes more than a practice space. It becomes your own mythology, a record of worlds born entirely from curiosity. Of course, sometimes inspiration doesn't come from the imagination, but from life itself. The wild, the expressive, the real. Animals are perfect for that. Next, animal drawings. One of my favourite ways to combine discipline with play. I always start loose, with gesture sketches that capture the energy in just a few seconds. It's about observing movement, not perfection. Notice the curve of the spine, the angle of the legs, the subtle tilt of a head. Even a single line can suggest weight, rhythm, and motion. Big cats like lions, tigers, or snow leopards are incredible for this. Every stretch, every leap communicates elegance and strength. Primates, chimps, and orangutans show expression, subtle posture shifts, and character in ways that teach empathy as well as technique. Birds of prey offer a completely different rhythm. Wings poised, talons gripping, eyes sharp and alert. Deer teach balance and quiet poise, and even in stillness, they radiate movement. Once I've warmed up with these gestures, I slow down and pick a single subject for detailed study. Here I pay attention to anatomy, texture, and form. The softness of fur, the flow of feathers, the subtle muscles beneath the skin. I observe small details that might be easy to overlook, a tension in a paw, the tilt of an ear, the way a tail curves as it balances a leap. Animals are teaching tools. They show you flow and proportion in ways that static objects simply can't. I often switch between quick gestures and deeper studies on the same animal. For example, I'll do 5 fast sketches of a tiger leaping, then spend 15 or 20 minutes or even longer carefully studying its face and shoulders. Or with an ape, I capture a loose pose first and then slow down to render expression and musculature. By alternating speed and focus, your hand becomes confident, your eyes sharp, and your sense of life on the page grows. There's another lesson here too, patience. Animals move, shift, and change constantly. You learn to pause, anticipate, and adapt. You learn to see the essence in fleeting moments. And beyond all technique, there's the joy. Sketching animals reminds you why you started drawing in the first place. for wonder, curiosity, and the thrill of capturing life itself. Each gesture, each detailed study is a small conversation with nature, a moment frozen in your sketchbook. And over time, these pages become more than practice. They become a record of life, rhythm, and energy that you can always return to, long after the animal has moved on. And finally, step outside, because at the end of the day, your sketchbook isn't just about studies or practice. It's about capturing life as it happens. Plein air sketching is where observation meets experience. Whenever I travel, I bring a small sketchbook, not to try and paint the perfect painting, but to capture a feeling or a memory of wherever I am. The light, the air, the sound of the world around me, all of that stays embedded in my memory whenever I sketch on plein air or when I travel. Here in England, I remember sitting against this brick wall, the sun warm on my face, sketching the trees that shimmered above me. I wasn't focused on the drawing itself, just the moment. The play of light through the branches, the quiet hum of autumn leaves falling towards the ground. It's one of those rare times when you realise sketching isn't just about making art. It's about being there, being still, being present, and absorbing everything around you. Then there are places like Lake Bled. I found myself deep in the gorge, surrounded by echoing, thundering water and stone, sketching the rocks as the light shifted down through the canyon. Pencil against paper felt grounding, like a way of documenting not just what I saw, but the stillness of it all. Not long after, I actually painted on plein air in watercolour and gouache, but that will be another video for another time. And sometimes you find yourself in a completely different rhythm, like Dubrovnik in Croatia. The light there is golden, ancient almost. I spent afternoons wandering those old city walls, sketching architecture and the epic statues along the cathedral. Every mark felt like tracing history, like connecting with all the artists who once stood in those same streets, inspired by the same light. That's what plein air sketching does. It anchors your memory in a way that photos never can. You can flip back through your sketchbook months later and feel where you were, the temperature, the movement, the atmosphere. So whether you're on a trip abroad or just sitting in a cafe down the street, bring your sketchbook with you. Because when you draw from life, you're not just capturing a view, you're living it.